welcome. It's good to have you.
Thank you so much.
I was telling the story about Dizu Plaatjes attached. You know Dizu?
Yes.
UCT, and then there's Tony Sidris, and there's Hilton Skilder as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they do the koi bow, and they tell the story about the koi bow. The koi bow being used for both hunting, but for as an instrument, in sacred kind of rituals. They're suggesting it's the first string instrument in the world.
Mm-hmm. There are a lot of theories about that.
Is there? Are there other theories as well? I always prefer the South African theory. Tell us about this love affair with the violin.
Man, it was the first instrument that really struck, without any puns here intended, struck a chord in me. I first went, the first time I realized my love for music was actually when I went into the Hoyer store. It was the store known for getting your music supplies, your music instruments, in my hometown called Somerset West. And then I just dragged my parents there. And then, I was like, okay, I really want to play this instrument forever. And then I went to school and I discovered the violin there because they were offering lessons. And then it was without a doubt a necessary move for me to take the violin as an instrument. So that was like 6 years old.
Traditionally, we're talking classical music coming from this particular instrument, a really beautiful haunting sound that I'm absolutely in love with. And all of a sudden, we're finding it in other genres of late as well. And especially women championing this particular instrument in other genres, which you have done successfully as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I think as you say, traditionally the instrument is known as a instrument that you perform classical music with. I studied at the University of Stellenbosch and performed my instrument there and studied it there. But I'm always that kind of person that wants to break into.
So what are the traditionalists? I mean, you got a BMus now. What do the traditionalists say? Sacrilege. How can you do pop with a violin? You should be tarred and feathered.
I mean, to be fair, there's a place for everything. There's a place for the tradition. There's a place for the grounding of your craft. So that's for that one stage where I was, needing to learn about the traditional. But I also wanted to hit home with my instrument. And what I grew up with musically was jazz, R&B, and a lot of pop as well. So I was like, okay, normally I would sing this instrument. I mean, normally I would sing to the songs, but let's transform this instrument into my voice. So that is how I came about this entire Kirsty Bows journey.
So I wanted to ask about its use in other genres and women. Why do you think women especially are championing its presence in other genres?
Yes, you did ask this now. So, but I love that you say it's women because I think I'm also finding that more and more often. I do think that women are looking to break boundaries in certain ways. And because I feel the violin is I think it complements the feminine, the divine feminine, and it complements the feminine ideals of a woman. And for that reason, I think it's natural that we would find a voice or a home there and then diverge into different other styles. So singing, playing all the woman anthems, for example, with the violin and transforming it into a string quartet version like I do is a way to kind of call what is traditional and what has been, historical our own.
Interesting you'd say divine feminine, sacred kind of feminine. So would you interpret the tone then of the violin? How do you?
I guess it has to do with the way you approach it. For example, I find...
So it's not the instrument itself, it's how you approach it.
It's how you approach it. I do think that, I think historically it was only men that played the instrument because the men would get into... like how men would get together to play chess. So the string quartet was that kind of environment back in the day. And now that's also another reason as to why women are taking it for themselves. But I think when I talk to a lot of people that I that have watched me or watched others play, they always usually refer the violin to like a woman playing, and someone dressed up elegant playing the violin. Yeah.
Okay, so the violin, and I want to hear you play. You play the electric violin. I love the violin.
Thank you.
I didn't. Maybe now I understand why I love the violin so much. I love the violin. I'm just interested to know if your electric violin can also bring forth the kind of nuances that the acoustic violin does. It is about pressure. It is about that love affair. It is about that emotion that you are imparting through sound. Can you get the same out of an electric violin?
Well, that's a very good question, and I always think about this every day. In terms of the feeling and in terms of the vibrations that you get from acoustic violin, no.
Okay.
But in terms of the electric violin and manipulating that same soul, once again, it's about how you approach it, And I do feel what helps me a lot is the fact that I approach it as a singer, because I'm actually primarily a singer. So I approach the violin as if I'm singing it.
So that's a prop. The violin is just a prop. Is that what you're saying?
Of course not. I would never dishonor my instrument that way. It's basically a vessel.
Okay.
Yeah.
That enhances the voice.
Well, it delivers my voice.
What is the main difference between, and I think I nearly asked that question, but maybe it's being phrased differently. What is the main difference between electric violins and a classical violin? What are the drawbacks with using a classical instrument fitted with a pickup? A listener question.
That's a good question. Well, I think that there are lots of ways of doing these things. I think the acoustic violin, you can mic up and then you can add simple effects. Like I'm going to give a little bit of a tech lesson here, but
effects on the desk eventually, or what?
Yes, on the desk. So as if almost like you're miking a voice, you can add effects like
reverb.
The reverb, and for the listeners that are listening, reverb is an effect that just makes it sound a bit more
echo. It's a little
echoey,
bit of echo.
And it helps blend the sound into the tracks. If you're playing with tracks, just makes it sound like you're in a hall space. With the electric violin, you can hook it up into a system, and I think in terms of the analog systems, in terms of the direct input that it has with technology, you are able to manipulate it even further, as far as I can understand. And I have so much more to learn in terms of technology, because I come from music compositional background, and I am merging into the tech world on the music side of things. So that's as far as I know in terms of the difference. Yeah.
Can we assume then that you're not going to be seen seated in the string section of the Philharmonic Orchestra? That is not where you perceive yourself.
No.
Okay. First fiddle. Is there such a thing as a first fiddle?
Maybe the soloist, but I'm very much an individual voice.
Okay, one more question, then we're going to take a break, and then we want to hear you sing. Are you going to sing? Or are you going to play the violin for us?
I'm playing the violin.
Playing the violin for us today. But there's another question in. Does an electric violin need is it bow?
No. Yes, it is called a bow. And no, it doesn't necessarily need a different bow.
How often do you need to change the strings on an electric violin?
That's always dependent, but depending on how often you play. But the strings can be changed, let's say, every 3 to 6 months.
And another question, Tommaso Albanone's Adagio, is that correct?
Yes.
Is my favorite piece for violin and cello. Please don't play it. You'll be sending me to another dimension.
I know exactly what you mean, because it's one of my favorites too. And I think it was also the track to Gianni Versace's season on American Crime Story. And I love how they embedded that into the whole series. It was like the theme, and I was like, wow, you guys did brilliantly with this.
And you're not going to be playing it?
I'm not playing that.
Okay, so there we are. You're going to survive today. was lekker. That was really very beautiful. Thank you very much. And I see you get really kind of animated when you're playing that instrument.
Music's always moved me. It's something that everyone, back in the day when you take an instrument, you take lessons and you go for competitions and Eisteddfods. And every time I performed at an Eisteddfod, for example, people always the one comment that would come in the certificate is that I'm so animated. So it's always been a thing.
Is that a brand thing or is it just your
It's
spirit
not even
moving?
a brand thing.
Okay.
It's just a me thing. It really is just a me thing.
How important is a brand thing to you?
I think it's very important. I think personal branding even.
Yeah.
It shows people what you are aligned with and what you value the most. And through that, you get to find people that, value the same things.
Yeah.
But more importantly, I think it also gives people an example of how to really own yourself, in who you are and your identity.
Sure. Do you think it's going to be a competition? Is it eventually going to need a winner? The violin and your voice?
I think they can work
Firstly,
together.
you can't sing with a violin in your neck, surely.
No, but I do still think there's, like they say, there's so many ways to skin a cat, and I do think that there's a way of them working together one day.
And do you think it's going to be more pop oriented, the kind of stuff that's going to come from you? You're saying you exploring the world of jazz as well. Could that be a direction for you as well?
I have been. I think we can call myself an anomaly, because I really enjoy lots of styles of music. There's one particular style that I don't enjoy, and I don't want to. I'm just going to refrain from saying that today. But aside from that style, I love all kinds of music, and I think that's so cool, because when you can love lots of styles, you really, really learn how to convey your own voice through these multiple interests.
We have to wrap up, unfortunately, there. Of course, we are going to be thinking about that one style that you wouldn't mention today for the rest of the weekend. But all the best to you and
Thank
your
you so
career,
much,
Kirsty Bows.
Clarence.
Thank you for joining us and introducing us to the sound of the electric violin.